I am thrilled today to be with a friend of mine, a former coworker of mine, Hannes Rudolph, formerly of RuCode. The RuCode alumni out there know who you are, but also now of OpenClaw. Hannes, thank you so much for coming on Dangerously Skip Permissions. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. To anyone out there, Hannes Rudolph is my name. I worked at RuCode as community manager, and then I transitioned to engineering, maintaining and engineering. And then I am now working with OpenClaw as the developer relations community management head. Yeah, we're just figuring it out as we go, similar to the early days of Ru, actually.
I love it. It's a great vibe, and it definitely suits you. I wanted to just have you tell a little bit of your story with Rue, and in particular how you made this transition into engineering. Because you were, if I recall the story correctly, you were there at like literally the beginning. Do you want to tell the
I
story?
I was there at the beginning. I was using this really great tool called Klein, and I wanted to have the dangerously skip permissions. I wanted an auto approve, and I don't think I'd ever made a PR. Well, whatever the case, I didn't know how to make a PR. And someone was like talking to me in a private message and saying, "You should make a PR, like make a PR." I'm like, ah. And so I did. And it turns out that these people over at this Ru.vet organization had already made a PR, I think like 16 days or something. I think every time I tell this story, it changes. Maybe 14 days. I forget. I did the math. I found the original pull requests, but anyways, I forget about it. So a few weeks later, I make it, and there was a few others. I think there was a total of 3 or 4, and we ended up in a group chat, and we ended up basically closing our PRs down in favor of the Ru.vet one. I think that they ended up taking on my my warnings were more prevalent. They had a hazard symbol
Yeah.
icon, and they were more prevalent because my thought was basically, because this was new territory, just if you're clicking this and something doesn't go the way you want, it's because you clicked this. Like, that's all. Don't blame me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I met the people that at Ru Klein at the time, at Matt Rubens, and we were going back and forth, and I was using Klein, and then I was using Ru Klein because I liked the features that Klein was coming out with. They were coming out with like banger releases,
Yeah.
release after release. And eventually, Ru Klein was simply just pulling that stuff over. The
Sure.
MCPs, they just came out, and Ru Klein pulled that over. And I was just using Ru Klein, and people on the Discord server were on the Klein Discord server were asking questions where my answer would be like, "Hey, use Ru Klein," but it's not okay to do that. So
Sure.
I thought, I don't like Discord; it's so noisy. I'm gonna make a Reddit, so a subreddit. So I created the subreddit for Ru Klein, and I remember when I told Matt Rubens, he was like, I think the first thing he said was, can you transfer ownership of that to me, please? Like, and he kept me as the admin and or the mod. I did the exact same thing, and he made it. He was nice and made it clear that it's just that's Ru is the brand of the company he works for, and
Sure. Sure.
yeah, they don't let just everybody own socials. So we did that, and then yeah, next thing you know, that took off, and I was the community manager at RuCode on the payroll.
Yeah. Well, and RuCode, at least the way that I understand it, is the originator of a lot of the things that we sort of take for granted around like slash commands or um, moving into more of an auto accept mentality when you're doing AI coding sort of
The slash
originated in
commands, I
that.
think we were behind on. We
Okay.
were late to the game on. But yes, modes, which ultimately became skills, I think. Yeah, live dangerous, skip dangerously, permission stuff. Orchestration, I think we were one of the first to have a reasonably successful orchestration, boomerang tasks.
Yep.
But we also got stuck in it was a lot of work, and there was very few people working on it,
Sure.
developers, and trying to. We spent there were several months where we'd spent all of our time just trying to get not do any engineering ourselves. We were just trying to get users or contributors PRs across the finish line, help them do that. And
Sure.
so
Sure.
it slowed down. We didn't dump tons of money and hire a team of 20 at most. There was, I think, two of us, two engineers, full-time engineers at most, working on it,
Yeah.
and we didn't keep up. And the story unfolded. Whoever was willing to keep the pace, the AI pace, was, well, gets the users.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, what do you think that's like? I mean, one of the things that's been in the back of my head, I know there's a lot of open source maintainers who have just said like, it's almost not worth it in the age of AI because you find yourself if in the old world you kind of were like really trying to encourage PRs and like get people engaged in an open source project. Now, if you get above a certain level of popularity, you're just kind of inundated, right? You end up having to kind of like fight your way through. What do you think about that? What are some of the observations you've had?
I think that OpenClaw experiences some of this, like,
Yeah.
and we don't discourage people from AI slop from making PRs that way. If they're not good, we need to filter them out, and we need to get better at doing that. And we don't just merge. We have a process for testing and making sure they work, and it just does create a lot of work to weigh through those. And so we are trying to figure out each day how to better harness like Peter says, founder of OpenClaw, loops. It's the thing he talks about a lot, it seems, and figuring out how to effectively help not manage fully, but I guess weed out some of the noise. It still takes human touch at certain stages, and we're not all for cutting humans out, but we're all for using AI to remove noise. And just as AI is the creator of noise in this specific instance, AI, I think, more often than not, acts as the parser of noise. It parses through and allows, I this is a little off topic, but one way where it makes a huge difference is instead of, we had libraries, and you'd go to the library and you find your book and you'd find what you needed in that book. Then we had the internet, and you can sort of find your book, right? You Google search, you scroll through. In no time, you have that content, but you still have to parse through it to find what you're actually looking for to learn. Now we're parsing through with AI, where we get to weed it out and hone in, right, laser beam on what we need to learn. Boom, we have it, we learn it, and we can do it. In the time it would have taken us to find one thing we wanted to learn, we've learned 10. And so it's accelerated our learning. And we just need to figure out how to apply this denoisification process to, I guess the PR process is the entire framework, like everything that is GitHub and how these pull requests and issues and comments and merging and yada, yada, yada. This is all built for manual processes, some automated workflows, but very much simple if then simplistic, deterministic behavior type stuff. And so I think that beyond finding a solution with AI, I think that these platforms are probably in need of some adjustments as well to help us weed through this, because their very nature encourages just noise. The Codex repo, you can't make the Codex CLI open source repo, you can't make a PR. You can make an issue, but you cannot just dump a PR on it.
What are some of the specific things that you do to help manage that process, manage that noise? Like, talk me through that.
Well, at Rue, I made a mistake. At Rue Code, I made a mistake where I thought, issues first. And it turns out that when somebody is contributing at the end of the day often, or in between jobs. They're motivated by passion. They want to solve a problem. They see the problem, they find the solution, they test it, they're excited, and then when you slap them in the face with, oh, there's no issue for this, they disengage. Or if you say, oh, you have to write an issue and it has to get approved, and I don't know how long by the time it gets approved, if it gets approved, they've moved on. They're the passion, the spark that was going to bring that creativity and the contribution has basically shoved them into a cubicle with,
Sure.
fluorescent lights and
It's
drained the
become
life
work.
from them. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's done. And so that wasn't the solution. I love the idea of issues first, but I don't think that it works in
Yeah.
an open source project as we'd like it to, especially not with AI. So how are we handling that at OpenClaw? We do have issues, but one of the first things, my first PR that was merged in the OpenClaw repo was to change the PR body in the GitHub template so that it was, I was trying to read, someone sent me an issue or a PR and I was reading it and I started reading. And after a few paragraphs, it was like, I don't know what I just read. Like the template encouraged slop wording. And so I put a template together that basically you end up with, 3-4 sentences maybe of a problem statement. What problem does this solve? And then another 2 to 4 sentences of, how is it solved? And the PR template has instructions to encourage the LLM not to be like, well, I changed this variable, right? Not technical. How was it solved? What was done?
Oh, so you're using the template to shape the behavior of what you get in. So it's in a way, it's almost like a user experience to kind of guide people, guide agents towards.
And then how does this impact the users? It makes it easy so that when we're parsing through so-called slop, that term is so, it means stuff, it means too many things. So I don't want to use it in an offensive way. When we're parsing through what, these PRs, you can read and go, problem statement. Do I agree with it or not? Yes, no. Well, if you don't agree with it, if our maintainers don't agree with it, and I'm not the one going through these, but the idea is if they don't agree with it, I imagine they could stop at that point. This PR body was born out of, I was talking to one of our maintainers, and they said how they got stuck. They were working on getting this PR across the finish line, and I think they spent 6 hours. And then they discovered they didn't want the PR because it wasn't changing. It wasn't that it was a bad PR. It was that it was just not. When they finally extracted the problem statement, the problem wasn't a problem that needed to be solved.
Sure.
It was a misunderstanding,
Sure.
or something of the sort. So having that problem statement will allow the human parsing aspect of it to understand. And I think that as we use our claw sweeper, our clanker that helps to work through these as well, that having problem statements that are clear also will help it. Less for it to decide. Oh, what is this? Right?
Yeah, I love that. I do think that I agree with you that slop gets thrown around in a way that isn't always helpful because whether or not people like it, AI mediated interactions are going to be a part of our lives moving forward. I also am in situations, particularly in my day job, where I will get these like really massive documents thrown at me with the expectation that I'm going to like engage with this. And on some level, I do think this is an opportunity for people to distinguish themselves in that like you ultimately at the end you have a choice about whether or not you throw something at somebody. And you can also use AI to make yourself crisper and to force yourself into 5 bullet points that you can really stand behind and to be of service to the person on the other side of it. And there's absolutely times where it makes sense to like organize your template and let the AI run and you kind of have to pick and choose, right? We're in a new world. We have to experiment. You have to, you said something really important a little bit before. It's like I made a mistake, right? I thought that this would be good, but it turns out that it didn't actually serve my bigger goals. And,
That
so I'm going
that
to
may have
change that.
been the thing that killed Rue.
Do you think
Like
so?
it was really a mistake.
Wow, that's big. That's big.
So yeah.
Well, so share your background a little bit, because I don't know if I know that I know your background, but you when you were starting to do your first kind of pull request on Klein, were you a software engineer? Talk about your story?
I have a small renovations business, and we shifted through some different processes, through different experiences, and we ended up deciding to do handyman work. And the thing about handyman work is it's usually 3 to 8 hours worth of work, and a lot of people are kicking tires. And I found I was able to answer the phone or answer emails or texts and engage with these people, lots of them. I could turn on Google Ads and get, lots, and engage, no problem, and still have time in my day. But let's just say that 5% of, you get a ton of them in and 5 or 10% of them close. Well, now it's time to get the work done, and all the context of our conversations, the phone calls, text messages, emails, etc., the pictures they send, the videos they send, has to be assembled so that my employee, our employee, I've got a business partner, can be given that work. And when they get to the house, the customer doesn't feel like they have to re-educate
Sure, sure.
on their dime while the clock is running. They have to re-educate. The idea is that there's a handoff, as though the conversation I had with the customer, the person at their door is just a version of me, right? Like they go, oh, okay, yeah, I already told you this, and it's, well, I have 100 text messages, and from that person, you go back and forth, and anyways, how could this be solved? Well, I was making software to solve it. I would do that with automation. My thought was that I could have like some deterministic filters and parsing of things, and then use an LLM lightly to like classify or break things down and summarize. And then MCPs came out. The MCP protocol came out, and Solid over at Klein was like fast to adopt it, like right away. One of the first. And I wrote a workflow, several workflows. I built MCPs. I built an MCP for parsing through for accessing my iMessages, accessing my one for accessing my Gmail, one for accessing Google address verification, and I don't remember, and one for accessing and writing to Asana. Asana. Yes, a handyman business that uses Asana. That's and that's how we sort our customers. I mean, there's only five. There's only five employees.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need like a custom CRM. All these CRMs focused on businesses like ours are full of way too much noise. And the 5 things I want them to do, they don't do that well, and Asana does them well enough. So, right? It's all I need is a to-do management system that is more complex than just a checklist, right?
Sure.
But nothing
Sure.
that's, yeah. So anyways, back to so I thought I was going to make this. I ended up making these MCPs. I made these workflows, which were early days of skills. So what I would do is I would store them in a file, and I would start the conversation by giving it a phone number and saying, read this file, follow the workflow, and here's the phone number. And so that's exactly what skills are. And then it would do that, and it would pull in the context, and it was using, I think, Sonnet 3.7. And
Nice.
it was these workflows were working. And so now I was basically building the context in Asana for all these interactions easily. So the whole idea was I was trying to figure out how to use LLMs to sort through the noise so I could get 100 leads in a day and
Sure.
document what I needed to and not worry about being overwhelmed with paperwork. Right? I love chatting with the customer. I love helping them solve their problems. That's what I do that's what I did at Rue. That's what I do at OpenClaw. I love helping people solve their problems. And Handyman was a way that I applied this in the brick and mortar world. And but the noise again. So I needed tools, and so I
Yeah.
MCPs, and then next thing you know, I'm not doing what I was supposed to be doing, and I'm managing a community, and then they hired me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and you didn't stop there. I mean, at least when I was working with you at Rue, you were one of the most productive engineers on the team, at least by measure of like PRs and features. Have
Definitely
you
by
gotten to the
tokens
point where
used.
you consider yourself an engineer? Yeah, I
I
tokens, yeah.
I learned PHP when I was 14.
Sure.
It's when I started learning it. I don't know, PHP 3 or something. I'm not sure even where we're up to now because I stopped. I think I learned that. Well, actually, I think I learned HTML. I thought that was code. I was 14 years old, and we had like the encyclopedia on a CD-ROM. And to me, PHP was code, and web crawler was how you search things. So I've been dabbling in code. I learned. I built things with Python before
Sure.
AI. I have built things with PHP. I did some bootcamp stuff on Udemy, on React, Redux, and JavaScript and such, and then TypeScript. So I built manually an app for when I was working with my brother for his business. I started building an app, a framework for helping to manage some things there. And now it's crazy to think what I did for him that took me like so much time is now like most of the time would be coming up with a document describing what you want done. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it would be done in like 30 minutes.
Sure.
That's as far as I got with his stuff. Right? Setting up a login portal, setting up a listings over here, user management, all that kind of thing. And man, it took so much work and I loved it, but I've never had the discipline to sit and code all day. I did for weeks on end a number of times, but when I was done, I was not like, oh, I want to do this more.
Yeah,
I
you're
loved
done.
what I made, but every time I have done that in my life, and there have been quite a few sprints where I was heads down on codes for weeks or months on end. When I was done, I was more motivated to figure out how to not have to ever do that again.
Sure. Sure.
Because it's like people who you hear they get really great at playing music and then they start doing it for money, for work, and it takes the joy out for them. I wasn't one of the people that and clearly some people are musicians where that brings them joy. But I was more like one of the musicians that, oh, now I have to do this for a job. It wasn't fun anymore. It was overwhelming. And so anyways, I started out there, and so I have the understanding of how code works. I have the passion for building things and coding, but I don't think when I say I played the role of an engineer, and I do play the role of an engineer sometimes, but I have mad respect for the people that are able to truly build things and have built things by hand. So to answer your question, I guess I play engineer. I'm an agentic engineer, but
Sure.
I don't like just generating slop.
Yeah.
I like to check it over thoroughly, and so that's one thing at Rue Code. Matt Rubens was like a stickler for merging. He controlled it for most of the time, for most of my tenure there, and it made sure that any PR I had was I had to think, how's he going to look at it? And so I had to learn to manually review my code the way he would, right? Yes, you review your code when you write it, but when you get someone else to write it, your AI, you don't review it always. So it really beat that into me like, You got to review it, because if things go south, my credibility, I've just wasted a reviewer's time, right? If they find a nitpick, no problem. But if they find a big hole, like,
Oh,
that's
that's
not.
the worst.
And
It's the worst.
engineers shouldn't be producing that kind of stuff. They should be able to check their own work to a degree,
Yeah, yeah,
right? If someone reviewing it finds something, it should be well hidden.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So
Yeah, Matt is the best, and definitely the Ruko team was highly agentic and also highly craftsmanship was a real part of it. And I think the other thing that I took away from working with you guys a little bit was the degree to which I think a lot of people will say like, oh, well, software engineering is dead. And actually what I saw, I've talked about this a couple of times, is that that actually specialization became more valuable because somebody who has a strong design eye, or somebody who is great at architecture is able to create a system that now more people can work within, and it is even more important to be scalable faster, or to have systems
Yeah.
that are understandable faster, because the people moving in those systems are able to move so much faster. So you need things that previously you wouldn't invest in as an engineering team of 5 or an engineering team of 10, where everybody sort of had the same context. All of a sudden now you need, because you're going to have low context people from the sales team, from the marketing team coming in and trying to do things, and you need to be able to kind of like help them route through it. And design is one of those things that does that. Architecture is another one of those things that does that. Guardrails or automated test or CI/CD pipeline, another way that you kind of do that. So anyway, I don't have a point at the end of that, but it is it has been interesting for me to kind of see that and reflect that. Well, talk to me about what's coming up for OpenClaw. What are you excited about there? What's the transition been like?
I would have prepared an answer, but no, I wouldn't have. Even if you gave me a question beforehand, I wouldn't have prepared an answer. What has the transition been like? The OpenClaw community is wild. It's crazy. It's vibrant. It's passionate. Peter has started something genuinely out of passion, and that shows, because people of a similar nature are, I think, drawn to that.
Sure.
They're drawn to the energy of, why does he create? Because he loves creating. And yes, now he has put himself in a situation where he probably has to maybe play music for a living sometimes. And I think he's a passionate musician, but I think he's one of those people that is capable and willing to be that musician that loves to do it for a living, and still inspire other people to want to play that music, and not because he's fake, because he's not phony. I mean, sometimes to his own demise, he's not phony. Like when he has passion about something, and I say that lightly. He is opinionated, and he is willing to try things out, have an opinion, but he's willing to try them differently when it doesn't work, right? And I think some people can anchor on that and go, oh, but he did this. And, you talk to him, he's like, oh, no, like, I undid that. Yeah, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have. And, like, sometimes he moves so fast, I think some people can. So when I say to his demise, some people will get stuck and go, aha, this is how he thinks. And, like, no, he already was like, no, yeah, that was, oops.
Sure.
And so not really to his demise, but it more of like it's just moves so fast. If people aren't keeping up, and they pay attention to the tweets or the podcasts or the sound bites, you can be like, oh, yeah, but he's doing it wrong. Like, I promise you, he will say a week from now that he was doing it wrong this week to some degree, because that's how he rolls. Like, And it's exciting because I get to be part of a team where I'm not afraid to do the same thing because
Sure.
I'm going, okay, I can do what he does. I'm going to be totally convinced and like opinionated about this. And then next week, I'm not flip-flopping. I'm learning. It's science. Science does this thing, right? You are convinced this is how something happens. And then next year, you uncover something and you go, "Oh, we are convinced it is totally different." And some people are like, "Yeah, well, these people are idiots. Look, see, they thought this and they thought this." Look, that is the nature of progress. That is science. And treating this AI, you know, development and agents and workflows and programming with this same type of scientific rigor
Yeah.
means being passionate and testing and breaking and saying oops and trying not to break things and just owning and moving forward. And I think there's a saying something like fail forward quickly or fast or something.
Yeah.
And like if you the demand for that type, the reward for that type of behavior is, I think, stronger than ever when you have AI as your helper.
Yeah, it's so nice that you said one of the things, the themes that's been in the back of my head is like what qualities matter most in the age of AI. So I one that I come back to a lot is courage.
The
Is matters
courage to be
more.
like, oh, oops, I did it wrong. Oops,
Well,
I
I'm
just
now
spent a
wondering.
week working on this and I'm scrapping it.
Yeah, I'm wondering now if I made a mistake is another like great phrase for people in the age of AI. The willingness to change and to reverse course or to adjust course. It's so interesting that you call that out. It's like a key element, and I'm going to be listening for that a little bit more.
I mean, on that tone, I issued a tweet this morning where I said exactly, I screwed up yesterday. I was interacting online in a way that wasn't how I should. I went lower than I have often claimed to not do. And so I owned that this morning, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to say, "Oh, I did it wrong." Correct course. And yes, how I act in this in something in social media, let's say, yeah, there's cleanup and damage, and that's I think if you think of that and you apply that to coding, to development, to engineering, however you call it, it's the same principle that you need to apply by going, oh, oops, I made that mistake. And I mean, think about it. You're going to have, if you operate this way, you're going to have heated discussions, passionate discussions with your team. And then one perspective is going to win out. You're going to move with it. And then a week later, the same person that pushed it is going to go, yeah, no, that one is. And the person that was passionately believing that and didn't get their foot forward in that debate is maybe going to feel a little like that's what I was saying. And so I think that that makes it harder to backtrack, to be on a team with this behavior. If you're a one person show, it's easier to be like, oh, I made a mistake, tweet something, move on. But now you're right. Dominant personalities will win out, I think, even when they shouldn't, because sometimes the best solution isn't just the person who can sell it the best.
Sure.
And so I think this creates a team dynamic where people that are strong in sales might disproportionately get their ideas tried more often. And that shouldn't be the case because the people that really understand the coding better than those people often need to be able to be heard. And so I think that one problem this creates is we have to adjust now that we have these passionate sales types engineering there needs to be adjustment to make sure that this passion doesn't override and disenfranchise the people that were seen as competent and the best engineers out there, because I'm convinced that when these less verbose types of personalities embrace agentic coding, that they are going to, the more they do it, obviously lots have, that just, they make people that are, way more willing up front because they didn't know how to code the same way. They will 10 times their output. And yeah, I think some of them are later to the party, but yeah, there is a world where we have to adjust how teams work because of AI. We
Sure.
have to. It's just like we're adjusting everything. How do we search for things? How do we shop? How do we tutor our kids? Rabbit Trail. My daughter's mark was dropping and in math, and she was saying the teacher doesn't explain it well. I saw this textbook and looked at it and started helping her going through it. I was like, this is like the same textbook, maybe one edition ahead, that I used. Like this textbook, and they're just like, they only review like these 2 pages and these 2 pages, and they go to the back and they
Sure.
find the practice questions, and it's like, I got her a Claude subscription and put in special instructions to give it a persona of a tutor.
Yeah.
And so when she shows it a picture of a math question, to teach her how to do it.
Yep.
Don't give her the answer. And then it turns
Yep.
out I also had to give it special instructions to use Python to verify her answer, because LLMs don't verify math very well. And she was like, it said that my answer was incorrect, and I had to like argue with it. Oh, I see, you're right. So my 13-year-old figured this out, and so we like, oh yeah, let's get Python to do it. So then she learned about how that works. And so my rabbit trail is like, this is upsetting how even the smallest things work.
Sure. Tinkering. Yeah. There's so much good richness in there. I think like um, the willingness to like adapt how you do things. Tinkering, I think, is another place that there's really returns to in the age of AI, because you can start sort of small and then go a lot bigger. Um, I love that. I love that.
It's really easy to be
Hey,
fooled that that I know what I'm doing when I make a PR that works.
yeah.
And
Ground truthing. This is one of my themes right now, is ground truthing, because my first product job was selling a software platform to corn and soybean farmers, and they were inherently skeptical of the software. But it was interesting to me to watch them interact with like salespeople of all types, because basically they're aware that they are a big dollar sign for all these people, and that they'll come by and they'll pitch fertilizer and they'll pitch a pesticide and they'll pitch a management technique. And these guys oftentimes, a lot of them, maybe didn't finish high school, maybe they did finish high school, didn't go to college. They don't know as much about agronomy or seed, or they're getting pitched these things that they don't understand. And the best ones were ground truthers. And they would basically be like, okay, you're going to tell me that this works. Here's how I'm going to try it on my operation. And if it actually works, I'll know, right? And so, what they did with our software is they basically were like, okay, I'm going to take it. I'm going to pick one field. I'm going to apply its recommendations. And I expect to see a yield increase that is big enough that I can measure it. And if I can't, like, I don't care what you tell me about the statistical validity. Like, it ain't working for my operation. And I do think that that's useful. I mean, I think one of the things that has made me a relatively successful agentic engineering is that as a product manager, particularly at the like less prestigious places that I worked, I had to do my own QA, right? Like I would have engineers all the time tell me like, no, it worked, it's done, the feature's great, and then I would be like, all right, I'm gonna open up the stage environment, like see how it works, right? And very frequently I'd be like, actually, like it doesn't work at all. Like please go fix it, because when I do the very obvious thing that a user is gonna do, like pick it up, open it up, add some text at like 500s. So like um,
Yeah.
and I mean, like that's basically what I do with clankers all day, every day. Is I describe the problem I want them to solve. I basically say, okay, what's the smallest possible milestone, or what's the next milestone that you want to work towards, and then I'm like, okay, how can I manually verify this, right? And if I can't, I'm just I retain a little bit of suspicion. I'm like, how do I ground truth this, right? Like, how do I like prove that this works in the real world? And I think that that's really valuable.
It's really easy to skip that stage.
Yeah.
It's really easy to skip that stage. And I remember when I would make PRs, and sometimes Matt would look at it and he'd be like, from time to time, he'd be like, "Did you test it?" Because his spidey sense is going off about something about it. But, if it works, okay, maybe it's wrong. And I'd be like, "Okay, yeah, I did." And he'd be like, "Well, how about in this scenario?" And it's like, "Oh, yeah. Let me get back to you." Yeah. So I think not too easily letting our tests, right? Lazy testing. Can't do that either.
Yeah.
Really,
Hey,
yeah. It's
I'm gonna
crazy
take
how
us on
easy
a
it is to output things now. So go ahead.
I'm gonna take us on a quick tangent just because I don't want to miss this opportunity. What's gonna happen with ClawHub? And I guess one of my other obsessions right now is tools for agents. So like things that agents will use. I'm a believer that we are going to see more agents. They are going to be doing more things. They will want tools, sort of in the same way that people will. Not for they're different. They have different constraints. There's certain things that are easy for people or hard for agents, and vice versa. But I'm just curious if there's a roadmap, or there's what is the team
The
thinking of there?
public roadmap is not fully defined yet, or
Yeah,
defined at all. The roadmap internally. Remember, I've only been at this for just under 2 weeks.
that makes
The
you in charge.
roadmap. I I'm what I'm in charge of is me and my tweets.
Yeah,
The ClawHub is being overhauled so
sure.
that it can be a useful way to find plugins or skills, and that is being worked on by several of the foundation staff and quite a number of community contributors. So yeah, it exactly what that means. Verification stuff, easier ways to sort things, better searching. I think groups of things to put workflows together instead of just piecing together skills on, oh, this skill, that skill. Official skills or plugins from organizations like, let's say, Expedia. Yeah, they have one. So people can use their Clanker and just be like, oh, I want to navigate Expedia.
Sure,
Boom.
sure.
Oh, well, how do I do that? Well, create me a skill. No, just use the skill made by the Expedia team.
Sure.
Ta-da. Right? So this kind of thing. Instead of going like, oh, Expedia, oh look, 6 people made one, trying to go back, check the person's GitHub. Is this person legit? Oh my gosh, they made 10,000 skills. This person's a bot. Whatever, right? That's not very desirable behavior.
Well, one of the things I'd love because I have a skill in ClawHub is a way to get feedback and a way, especially with like public ratings from the agents, would be really interesting to me. Because one thing with the skill that I created, I actually thought that there was already a skill there that did what mine was going to do. Like, I kind of had this itch for a project, and before I wrote any code or had an agent write any code, I wanted to go and check, and I found something there. I was like, okay, wow, somebody else has already thought of this idea. Like, I just thought I was on the forefront. And then exact same story you just told. I looked and I was like, huh. There were a ton of code was dumped into this GitHub, and nothing, and then nothing, and it's been silent for 3 months. And I actually tried to run it, and it immediately fell over. It didn't work, but it was it's really highly rated. Or, lots of whatever the old
Lots
you
of
guys just changed.
downloads.
Lots of downloads, right?
We're
Yeah,
adjusting
yeah.
that to go off of installs is one thing
Yeah.
we're doing to improve outside of, verification stuff and such. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So anyway, it was interesting. It was interesting, and then of course now I pay attention, and I did like the move to installs and away from
Installs away from
just
downloads,
downloads. Yeah, because it was like, oh, okay, like it leveled it out a little bit. Anyway, I just think it's an interesting place, and the thing I would love is like I have set up for my agent a way that it can accept feedback, so that right my skill runs totally locally. It's totally open source. You don't need an account, but I've created a little place where people's agents can be like, hey, this was broken. Hey, this is actually the only way that I know that people other than me have used it, because periodically I'll get a ping in my Discord where I'm like, you didn't like this. Okay, cool. Like, let me go fix that. And I think it would be cool to do some of that in public too, because it's a sign of life, right?
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Anyway,
No, that's a great idea, right? I mean, yeah, being able to give feedback easily, and I think that feedback could be parsed or aggregated and sorted
or
in a
even
way
just
that
shaped, right? Yeah.
well, and so you can weed out the crap stuff. There can be ratings. It's like when you go to look at a movie thing, you're like, okay, well, what does Rotten Tomatoes say? What does IMDb say? What does this, you know, critics say? And you can look at the various, and then you can decide yourself based off of, several indicators, instead of just the one that claims to be the source, and this is the only indicator that matters.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is lots going on, and the cool thing is you can contribute, James,
I will.
to the repo itself, ClawHub, and your ideas. You can go in Discord and you can connect with the appropriate person in the Clawtributors channel and fight to get your ideas to the front.
I will do my best. I'll write a really good problem statement so that it makes it through. Hannes, this has been awesome. I appreciate you making the time. We'll definitely have to have you back as things continue to evolve. But really appreciate the way that you bring people in to projects, and I think it's great. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pleasure being here.